welcome everybody. We have a fantastic conversation. You're about to hear from Christina Acevedo. Did I get that right? Acevedo?
Acevedo.
Acevedo. Like avocado, right?
That's right.
Yeah, cool. Well, Christina, she is a Red Seal chef, a registered holistic nutritionist, and the author of the two little F words, Feasting and Fasting, Your Way to Optimal Health, an incredible cookbook that you're going to learn all about the principles that she has gathered from her own personal life and experiences, her professional experiences, and put into this gluten-free, no refined sugar, incredible and beautiful cookbook. So welcome, Christina.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me, Malcolm.
Yeah, right on. Well, our connection goes way, way back. I first met Christina. She was already a Red Seal chef. She was doing private chefing way back when. This is like 16 years ago. Her and I were doing our studies in holistic nutrition at CSNN here in Calgary. And that's where we first made our connection. And yeah, hey, 16 years later, we keep walking our path in this field, and love to see where you have arrived.
Thank you. Yeah. I just had a memory come back. I remember you coming into class with the green drinks or some kind of elixir in like a glass container. I just remember that. I remember you walking in, I'm like, what is this all about? I just wondered. Anyways, yeah. So as you said, yeah, I'm a Red Seal chef, holistic nutritionist. And, about 7 years ago, a lot shifted for me. A lot of things changed. My mom was diagnosed with mild cognitive impairment, which, as they say in the conventional world, leads to Alzheimer's. And it has for my mom throughout the years. And at the beginning, we went into the doctor's office and we were told that it's going to lead to Alzheimer's, get everything into place, and there's nothing that we can do, and just accept that this is your mom's path, and that, there's no positive outcome. And when we left the doctor's office, I was just, we cried together, tried to understand what the doctor just told us. And in the end, after sitting and contemplating, I was like, this isn't right to think that there's nothing that we can do. And so I started a huge journey of going down the rabbit hole of what could I possibly do to help my mom either reduce the symptoms or completely reverse it. And no one ever said that that was possible in the conventional wisdom or the conventional world of medicine. And so I became fascinated with Dr. Bredesen's work on Alzheimer's prevention, but also Alzheimer's reversal. And he is in the world of functional medicine, which I never really knew about until I started trying to understand how Alzheimer's gets created, where it comes from, and what we could possibly do. So for years and years, I went to a ton of functional medicine conferences because I had that holistic nutrition background. I was able to attend. And I would just go to as many conferences as I could, joined as many webinars, read as many books as I could, and realized that there were so many biomarkers that caused Alzheimer's. It was never one thing. And so is holistic nutrition, right? Like in the holistic world, there's never just one thing that causes something. We're one biochemically individual, and there's always different root causes, even if it's the same diagnosis. Not everybody has the same reason for getting that diagnosis.
Yeah, it's such an important point. I mean, not only is it never just one cause, there's also never just one simple fix either.
That's right. And that's why specifically for Alzheimer's, all drugs and pharmaceutical companies have always failed. Always. 99.8% of Alzheimer's drugs have always failed because they're trying to get to one specific cause, and that's just not how Alzheimer's works. So once I realized that Alzheimer's begins 20 years before symptoms even occur, and then I realized that 2/3 of Alzheimer's patients are women, I had a big aha moment for myself. I'm 43 now, and 7 years ago, I was in my late 30s and realized, oh my God, like I'm at the peak spot where I could start creating Alzheimer's for myself if I don't change a lot of fundamental things that I'm doing in my life. So it became helping my mom, but also prevention for me in the future. And then once I realized that two of the biggest biomarkers for Alzheimer's for many people is inflammation and insulin resistance. And those were two biomarkers that I felt, and there's many other biomarkers like mycotoxins, heavy metals, um, PTSD. There's many, many, many biomarkers. If you look up Dr. Bredesen's book, he explains a lot of the different biomarkers that can be part of the root cause of your specific diagnosis for Alzheimer's. So once I realized chronic inflammation and insulin resistance, how could I possibly help reduce the chronic inflammation that I have and make sure that my insulin is in balance with my blood sugar? So the two biggest things that I realized were feasting and fasting. And that's how my book came to be. I never thought I would write a book. I never thought that this would be part of my journey. But as soon as I put my mom on a lower refined carbohydrate diet and stopped eating 6 times throughout the day, as we've been told for many, many years, that we must balance our blood sugar by eating every 2 hours, and never going without meal. And then looking into the research and studies on time restricted eating and feasting with whole foods, everything just came together. And I was able to get my insulin resistance into balance. I'm a holistic nutritionist. I'm a Red Seal chef. My insulin should have been in balance, but even mine wasn't, because I was eating way too often throughout the day because I thought that's what I was supposed to do.
Right. So what would be an indication for someone listening going like, okay, oh my gosh, like you had this kind of blood sugar imbalance. What are some kind of signs and indications that might lead someone to a clue of, oh, okay, maybe they are on this track of, eating every 2 hours, but what
Mhm.
else internally might they be experiencing that could just kind of give them a little tip to, hey, this is something to look into. Is my blood
Yeah.
sugar really truly balanced?
Yeah, great question. So before people's blood sugars are out of balance and they become diabetic or pre-diabetic, the biggest marker to check is actually fasting insulin versus fasting blood sugar. And so many doctors just disagree with checking fasting insulin because they don't feel like it has any reason to be there. But there's just so much research out there that fasting insulin is more important than fasting blood sugar in order to see where your blood sugars are actually at. So for me, I would get hangry, as they say. If I didn't eat, I always had to have snacks with me. And if I didn't eat every 2 or 3 hours, I would get hangry. I would get irritated. And I didn't realize that that was because my insulin was out of whack.
Mhm.
And I would get fatigued just for no reason more often than I should have, but I just thought it was normal because I lived like that for so long.
Right.
And then inflammation, I really found big. As soon as I was able to get my insulin in balance, my inflammation, because I have stage 4 endometriosis as well, I just realized that it really impacted my inflammatory markers as well. So when my insulin became balanced, my chronic inflammation became more balanced.
Right.
And that was through feasting and fasting, mostly time restricted eating, being able to eat within a certain amount of time, and then being able to go from burning glucose to burning ketones. And that's like a whole other topic. But it's such a very important topic. The whole thing that I wanted to achieve was metabolic flexibility from starting to feast and fast in a certain amount of time every day. And the more you challenge your body in a hormetic stress, which is like, it's a good type of stress because it's for a short amount of time. That's the kind of stress that we want to have on our body because it makes you more adaptable and resilient in the future when stress comes to you. And metabolic flexibility is how we evolved. At times, we didn't have food to eat, so we switched to using ketones as energy. Then, when we did have food to eat, we would then use glucose and just use as much glucose as we needed. But the point was that we could go back from burning glucose to ketones very easily. And nowadays it's just really hard because we eat way too often throughout the day.
Yeah, no, it's so true. I've just been thinking about that as you've been sharing this idea of, our ancestors pick, anywhere in the world, any other time period other than now in our kind of modern world where we have access to food, 365,
Yep.
24/7, and not only food, but food that's like, massively high in calories,
Mhm.
including sugars. And yeah, no one's ever questioned that, whereas fasting has always been literally a
Mhm.
part of the human experience. And I love what you're talking about in terms of that dynamic flexibility, the ability of the body to go through those periods, whether it's just a few hours or a few days or whatever circumstances
Mhm.
can bring. The body's adaptable, and that shows true resilience and strength versus, okay, I gotta eat every 2 hours. Like, that's never been a part of our human
No.
experience ever.
It hasn't. And that's exactly right. Becoming true health for me and for optimal health seekers, and like really the message of this book is taking your health into your own hands, becoming resilient, like authentically resilient, truly resilient, and being able to switch from ketones to glucose and becoming metabolically flexible is part of that, I believe. And it just again makes sense. I went to so many fasting conferences and time restricted eating conferences and just learned that this is how we evolved, and that if you're hungry after 2 hours of eating, you've got to check yourself and be like, what did I do, what did I eat 2 hours ago that didn't satiate me for very long?
Right.
And why am I having these imbalances of blood sugar? It's because basically the insulin resistance versus the blood sugar imbalance. That's what will show up first in testing. I love testing. I love getting my biomarkers, just so I know where I'm at and what my systemic inflammation is at. Again, I'm all about prevention, so knowing all of those numbers really helps me see what's working at one point and then what's not working at another point.
Right. Cool. So actually, I've got three questions here I want to kind
Yeah.
of spin back to. So as you described your mother's story, getting diagnosed with this kind of first initially this kind of cognitive impairment, was she cognitive enough at that time that she could register like, uh-oh, this is happening, and here's going to be my fate over the next few years?
Yep. She was and still is.
Right.
It's progressed into full on Alzheimer's, but she's still aware that she has it. It's crazy. It's a crazy, crazy disease and a crazy imbalance. And I'm just, I live really close to my mom and dad. Luckily, I'm down the lane. I can be part of the caretaker to help support my mom and dad. But throughout this journey, I've learned so much, that it's not just diet, it's not just how she chose to live her life, in what she ate, but how she thought and how she was programmed even before she was born, of what her mom thought and her dad thought and what she went through as a child. And there's so much to it. It's not just about the basic things that everybody talks about. Oh, you're toxic and you don't eat very well, so you're going to get Alzheimer's. There's so many things involved.
Yeah,
So
actually, that's a great segue to my next question of
yeah,
how much of this is hereditary or even beyond that, right? Like,
great
kind of
question.
deep ancestral patterns, because you mentioned kind of all these kind of biomarkers, lifestyle, that are contributing factors, and how much is it kind of baked into our genes there?
It's an amazing question. And this is what really empowered me when I was doing my research for myself and then turning it partly into the book. Um, Epigenetics. So this is Dr. Oh God, Bruce Lipton, one of my most favorite people that I absolutely love. If no one has heard of him, please look him up. He's amazing. He's the father of epigenetics. And what has been researched and studied, and just like, I guess, a truth for quantum physics and the understanding in functional medicine, is that our genes are not our destiny.
Hmm.
And we have so much more power over our health destiny than we are told and believed and programmed to think. And it's not just, somebody saying it. It's proof. There's science behind that. Dr. Joe Dispenza is another good one to follow and learn about this. So epigenetic, like for Alzheimer's and genes, there's I think it's like 2%, don't quote me on this, but it's a very small amount of genetic. If you have the genes, if your mom has it, yes, you have a little bit more of a chance, or a dad has it, if you have a little bit more of a chance of getting it. But 80% of what you choose to live, how you choose to have your lifestyle, you've got an 80% chance. I'm not explaining myself properly. Like, your genes are a very small part of your destiny in getting Alzheimer's or not getting Alzheimer's. And once I found that out, I realized how much more power I have. I needed to change so many things in my life. And it wasn't just food, it was the way I think and what I believe and the people I surround myself with, the lifestyle I live. I live in the middle of the forest right now. I've been living in the middle of the forest for 7 years, and I would not exchange it for anything. It's like part of my optimal health plan. I have a garden, and the reason I do that is to help prevent chronic illnesses. It's not just the food we eat. The food and the time restricted eating are just two of the amazing pillars that are such a big part of other things. We have over 80% power to choose whether we get a chronic illness, the chronic illnesses that we have today, or to not get it.
Yeah, amazing. Okay, so you mentioned a few authors. We got Bruce Lipton, we've got Joe Dispenza, and then how do you pronounce or spell Bredesen? So if someone wanted to kind of do a quick little search on that.
Yeah, Dr. Bredesen, Bredesen.
Yeah.
So he's the first one. It was amazing. When I read his book, he was the first one. 9 out of 10 of his patients, it was a small study, but this was like maybe 11 years ago, 10 years ago. 9 out of 10 of his patients were either able to reduce the decline or completely reverse Alzheimer's. Mm-hmm. And like you mentioned that in the normal world or in the conventional world, and they're like, no, it's not possible. There's no such thing. And that's simply not true. You just have to search for the information. And once you do, it's all out there. It's exposed. Like, there are so many things we can do to help prevent this. And it's like one of my things I need to do in my life to help. And especially for women, 2/3 of Alzheimer's patients are women. Every 60 seconds, someone is getting diagnosed with Alzheimer's. And it's not just because of the plaque buildup in our brain. That's there actually, as they're showing in studies, that it's actually a protective part. It's protecting our brain from more harm being done from other things that are happening inside of us. Yeah,
it's the same with in the arteries, right? That plaque buildup.
Exactly. And so that chronic inflammation, those two biomarkers, the chronic inflammation and the insulin resistance, the time restricted eating helps immensely. And then and then feasting with whole foods. Like, there is no reason to eat refined sugar. There's absolutely no reason. And there's no reason to even put the amount of, good quality sweeteners like raw honey, maple syrup, that kind of stuff. There's no reason to add a cup of that into your cookies or your muffins. It's not necessary. The only thing that's necessary is being open to allowing time for your taste buds to make that change. Yeah. Because when I first started cooking for my mom, alternatives of gluten-free, and the whole gluten-free thing, I'll touch upon why I've gone gluten-free and why I encourage other people to. But the whole transition from refined sugars to a little bit of good sweetener, my mom and I didn't like it at first. It tasted bland. It didn't taste right. But after a couple of weeks of transitioning and going from ketosis to burning glucose, my taste buds changed. Everything tastes delicious now. It tastes like it should taste, instead of being blinded, your taste buds thinking that it has to have the refined sugar. And that refined sugar, the sugar is a huge component of the inflammation and insulin resistance, and nobody ever talks about it.
Probably similar to that subtlety that you found living in the forest, right? Like coming from
Yes.
the city and the stimulation to just that kind of quieting of the forest. And I'd imagine it was not only a shift for your taste buds, but also your physiology, right? I think a lot of people are literally like, dependent in some
Mhm.
cases on sugar at a physiological level.
Completely. And it's proven that sugar is like addictive even more than cocaine, right? I write about this in my book. There was a study done on mice, either giving them cocaine to soothe them or refined sugar, and they went for refined sugar. I mean, it literally changes the chemicals in your brain, and it's just not talked about enough.
For sure. And if anybody's kind of questioning that, here's the ultimate test, the ultimate gold standard. Try going cold turkey without sugar
Mhm.
for a day, for a week.
Yep.
You realize instantly how
Yep.
hard it is. So once we recognize we have the problem, then we can turn to people like Christina in her book and begin to, move towards those solutions. And it doesn't need to be, or maybe you do recommend, is this one of these things that you got to address overnight?
No, no.
No.
See, the whole thing, I want this to be a lifestyle for people. It's like really, it's going to be a detox. And I write about it in my book. You're going to feel like crap, maybe. It depends how dependent you are on these things, right? And it's not even the dependence of refined sugar, it's the dependence of even eating constantly. Like, I don't think people realize why they're even eating as much as they're eating. So many people, and I didn't realize it for myself. I felt a little anxious when I didn't eat for a long period of time. And that was partially because I wasn't dealing with things that made me feel uncomfortable. And so there's so much to it. And that's why I want it to become a lifestyle and go at your own pace and honor that we are cyclic beings. Um, I don't fast 16 hours and feast for 8 hours all the time. It depends where I'm at in my cycle as a woman, but also in the seasons, also the stress that I'm going through on a daily basis. Feasting is a type of stress. It's a hormetic stress, just like being in the sauna is a type of hormetic stress. So we have to honor it. It gets you more in tuned with yourself, right? It allows you to go within and decide, okay, do I want to get real with myself and decide what I need to do? Or do I want to keep numbing myself with food or watching television or gambling or smoking, whatever it may be? We all have, and we have to be able to admit that to ourselves, right? And
Yeah.
I had to do that for myself. I didn't know.
Yeah. So it sounds like this book is much deeper and more spiritual than just kind of addressing Alzheimer's.
It is, and it got it. I only realized it after I wrote it, and I'm realizing it more and more that I share, the more I talk to people. Like the feasting and fasting is just the top layer, and the deeper rooted message that I want people to discover is that we must take responsibility for our own health. And we must look within and decide what is right for us and question even all of the information that I received from functional medicine and all of the webinars that I went, or the conferences I went to. I wanted to hear what they said. I wanted to believe it, but I couldn't just believe it. I questioned it and then looked into it, and then it still felt right for me. So I continued down that road.
Yeah,
It's so much more than I expected.
it's a great message, and you're clearly living it. And as you would share, okay, you would, become a Red Seal chef, you would become certified in holistic nutrition, but our journey is never over, is it?
No, it's not. It's not, but that's not what we're told. It's like, just get this and do this and be on this diet and do that, and you'll be set. And it's like, I'm just realizing the older I get, it's just not like that. And if I think like that, I just keep getting disappointed.
Right.
So the more I'm open and discover things, I just feel more fulfilled because my journey never ends.
Yeah. Cool. I was just thinking that and I want to emphasize it. So I'm glad you did as well. That, if for anyone that's watching and is hearing that call, okay, I need to change, I need to grow, I need to improve. And that's not a burden. That is an adventure. That is fulfilling in
Yeah.
itself, not as well as the end goal that one would arrive to, right? The place we're going to get, it is fulfilling in the journey, as tough as it will be to make some of these changes that
Mhm.
talking about.
It's so true. And the whole gluten-free part, I went gluten-free again for stage 4 endo many, many years ago, and it made a huge difference in that part of my journey. And then I just realized more and more that, you can go down the rabbit hole with gluten-free or not gluten-free and the whole trendy, not trendy. But for me, I wanted to do everything to reduce my insulin resistance and to reduce my chronic inflammation. And going gluten-free, if you go gluten-free and then start eating a whole bunch of refined gluten-free products, it's going to do the exact same as gluten-free or exact same as eating wheat-based refined products. So for me, all of the recipes in my book are not just gluten-free, but no refined sugar and not things that are going to spike your blood sugar, insulin in a huge way either. So for me, going gluten-free is not just eating processed gluten-free bread. It's make your own bread, and it's actually easy to make. I have an amazing recipe in there that it's not even, I'm not the type of chef that's going to take hours to make recipes, because it just doesn't work for my lifestyle. That's not how I want to share my knowledge and what I feel like I can share with people. So the whole gluten-free isn't to be trendy. It's really scientifically proven that it can increase inflammation in many people, especially if you have leaky gut. And so many of us have leaky gut and we just don't know it. And just because you don't have, bloating or digestive symptoms, that doesn't mean that you don't have leaky gut. There's so much more to it. So for me, it was important to have recipes that helped reduce inflammation, and taking gluten out just really helped do that.
Yeah. Okay. Well, why don't you give us a quick little summary of what else we can expect in this recipe book? You mentioned gluten-free bread as one example.
Yeah, so here actually there's gluten-free bread, there's homemade bone broth, which is really easy to make. There is really something for everybody. There's grain-free, there's some dairy-free, there's some egg-free, there's many it kind of fits it helps a lot of people with different food issues. But I've got a whole bunch of different salads. I have amazing salad dressings, really yummy chocolate, raw cacao muffins that you could get amazing raw cacao from Malcolm at Light Cellar, and these super yummy carrot pineapple muffins. Like, honestly, the recipes look like they wouldn't really be very good for you, but it amazes me every time I create a recipe and I'm like, really, this is what's in it and it tastes this good? I can't believe it. I'm not just tooting my own horn. I swear to God, like, I eat this food and everybody that eats it, they're like, really, this is gluten free, or really, there's no refined sugar, there's only 2 tablespoons of raw honey in it. It's amazing once you kind of decide, okay, I'm not going to eat the way I was raised or thought that is healthy, and just kind of expand your repertoire and realize that it's not hard to make and it doesn't have to taste terrible.
Awesome. Cool. And then I'm also curious, from someone who writes, and I'm working on my second
Yeah.
recipe. I imagine all this kind of content that you've been sharing in the call, is it either kind of right up front in the beginning, or is it just spread and dappled through the recipes? How have you laid that out?
That's a great question. So I'm self-published just to start. So, me wanting to sell books, as you're not going to make a living off of selling books as a small indie writer, for me anyway. It's crazy. It costs a fortune to publish a book or to print a book, and it's all color, so that makes it even more expensive. I had no idea. The true purpose is to share this message about so many things. The first couple of chapters are really getting people, it's about my story and having people understand, the detrimental effects of refined carbohydrates and the whole money side to it, and understanding what we've been told, and the diet that we've been told to eat, the reasons why we're told to eat grains and dairy and all of this kind of stuff. So there's that side to it, and then just explaining to people, the difference between refined carbohydrates and whole food carbohydrates. Like, we need carbohydrates. We don't necessarily need, we could go in, that would be a rabbit hole, but there's good carbohydrates, and then there's the refined carbohydrates. And then within the recipes, a lot of times I just share the reasons why that specific recipe was created, and like the essence behind it. Like, I really want people to know the reasons as to why I put certain things in the book, and to just share my authentic story behind it.
Cool. Well, it's a great work that you are
Thank you, man.
embarked upon and created for the world. So thank you so much for taking the time out today to share with
Thank
us.
you.
Yeah, let folks know, how can they connect with you?
Awesome. So I have a website, honeyandvanilla.com. That's like the best way to get in touch with me. And I've got a whole bunch of other recipes on my site as well. Every month I do a newsletter. So if you want to be a part of that, just sign up on my website and you'll get a monthly newsletter about, I try to write an article about, the last one was sleep and Alzheimer's prevention and optimal health. Sleep is a huge, huge thing. Another huge holistic tool that needs to be implemented for everyone. And yeah, so they could sign up for my newsletter. They can contact me through honeyandvanilla.com. They can purchase my book at your store, and many other places. Just go to my website and you can learn a lot there.
Cool. Right on. Well, it was an absolute pleasure to catch up with you and hear all about your work, and everything you shared was really life-changing and empowering. So I encourage everybody to get that book, The Two Little F Words, for yourself, for your parents, for anyone you know that, which is a lot of people that may have these biomarkers that are leading to quite a certain path. I mean, do you have a statistic? What is it now of, how many people? You mentioned 2/3 are women, but what's the percentage of the population? I know it's increasing all the time, but that are dealing with this
That's
Alzheimer's.
a great question. I mean, it does change all the time. The latest statistic I heard is that every 60 seconds, someone is getting diagnosed with Alzheimer's. That's
Wow.
crazy. That is crazy. And to think that it's for only one reason, that the root is only one reason, it doesn't make any sense. There's so many reasons, and people just need to discover what is working and what isn't working in their life, and change it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, again, super appreciate that. And
Thank you.
yeah, we like I say, we do have, where Christina mentioned, we do have these books here at Lightseller as well. And be sure to check out honeyandvanilla.com and grab Christina's book. Okay. Thanks again.
Bye. Thank you.